And now the 18th chapter. This is a chapter which we have not only here, but in another place. Extra points to you if you know where it is. Maybe it says in the commentary of your book where you're looking. So this was a prayer that was written, Tehillim that was written, a song that was written for the leader of the conductor, and it was written of David, the servant of the Lord. It was written by David, was written about David. Asher diber ladonai divrei ashira hazot, who spoke these words of song, biyom hitzila Adonai oto mikaf kol oivav umiyad Shaul, on the day that God delivered him, saved him from all of his enemies and all of Saul. Why is Saul listed there separately? Well, you can look at it in two ways. One, Saul's not his enemy. Saul was somebody who had some terrible mental problems. So who was paranoid about his son-in-law becoming king rather than his son, who at times of his life of clarity said, B'ni David, B'ni David. So there were times where so Saul was not really David's enemies as opposed to Amalek and Plishtim, etc., etc. So that would be probably to me the main way, but Saul still threatened him. Shaul was ready to kill him. So David's going to talk about being saved. He mentions that name as well. Okay, verse 2, Vayomar. Erchamcha Adonai Chizki. I adore you, God, my strength. Adonai Sali U'Mitzudati U'Mifalti Eli Tzuriach Esebo Magini V'Keren Yishi Miskavi. God, my rock, my fortress, my rescuer, my God, my rock in whom I seek refuge, my shield, my mighty champion, my haven. Because here David puts his trust in God. Mihulal Ekra Adonai Ubin Oivai Ivashea. All praise I call upon you, God, and I've been delivered from my enemies. Afafuni chevle maviv nachlev li'al yivatuni. The ropes of death encompass me. The raging waters of Li'al, they terrify me. We've heard the word Li'al many times in the book of Shmuel, somebody who either doesn't have an old, somebody doesn't have the yoke of God on them, or somebody in this case cannot go up. They're in the torments of Blial. They're in the underworld. They're in the bottom of the water. They can't make it up. It was used numerous times in the book of Shmuel as referring to somebody who's just a terrible person. Ropes of Shaol encircle me, snares of death confront me. This word Shaol is not Shaul. Shaol is the netherworld, the place you go down to. Hell will call it, the place you cannot come back from. But Sar liekra Adonai Velohai Ashave. Yishma me'echolo koli v'shivati lefanav tavo ve'oznav. In my distress, I called out to you, God. I cry out to you, God, in His temple. You heard my voice. My cry to Him reaches His ears. The earth rocked and quaked. The foundations of the mountain shook, rocked by God's anger. Smoke went up from God's nostrils, as it were. From His mouth came fire. Coals blazed down from him. He bent the sky. He came down with thick clouds beneath his feet. And you hear here some of the images here about God protecting David sounds like imagery that we have from, in this verse specifically, Har Sinai. There are other ones that seem to also refer to allusions to Kriyat Yam Suf, the splitting of the Red Sea. Here, this one sounds like Har Sinai, when God came down on the mount. Vayirkav Kruov, he mounted a cherub and flew, gliding on the wings of the wind. Sounds right. This is for a anti-anthropomorphicist, somebody who does not believe that God has a body, as is the majority case amongst the Jewish philosophers. This chapter has obviously many questions in it. Yashet choshech sitros vivotav sukato chashchat mayim avei shechakim. He made darkness his screen. There was darkness. There were dense clouds. This pavilion was around him. Minoga negdo, out of the avav avru, and through this darkness, his brilliance came. Hail and fiery coals, barad v'gachaleesh. Vayar'ed b'shamayim Adonai v'elyon yitain kolo barad v'gachaleesh. And the Lord thundered from the heaven. The one who's most high gave voice. Hail and fiery coals. So that's his voice. His voice was given through these protective things that protected David, things that protect Bnei Yisrael. He let his arrows fly, and they scattered Vrachim Rav Vayehumein. He discharged lightning and routed them. The ocean bed was exposed. Here we see stuff that's, again, more illusion, sounds like Kriyat Yamsuf. The foundations of the world were laid bare by you, roaring God, at the blast and the breath of your nostrils. Yishlach mi baromi kacheni, yamsheni mimayim rabim. You reached down from high and you took me. You drew me out from these mighty waters, the waters representing, right, the overcoming, the difficulty. I can't get out, in the sense that David is, I'm drowning due to the wickedness, and God comes in and pulls him out. Yatzileni, we're in verse 18, May oivi az umisanai ki amsumi meni. Save me from my fierce enemy, from foes who were too strong for me. Yikadmuni v'yomedi v'yihi Adonai l'mishanli. They confronted me on the day of my calamity, but God was my support. Vayotzieni lamerchav yachlitzeni ki chafetz bi. God brought me out to freedom, rescued me. Because, why? Because God wanted me. God was chafetz. God was pleased with me, or wanted me, desired me, because of my behavior. Yigmaleni Adonai kitzidki kivor yadi yashivlo. The Lord rewarded me according to my merit. He returned to me the cleanness of my hands. Ki shamarti darkei Adonai v'lo rashati melohai. For I've kept the ways of God and not have been guilty before God. Ki chol mishpatav l'negdi v'chukotav lo asir meni. Because I've listened to his rules. I didn't discard them. Why did God come and save me? Well, I was a good guy. Vehi tamim imo ve'eshtamer me'alvonai. I've been blameless toward him. I've guarded myself against sinning. Now, those commentators who talk about these verses and wonder, how could David say such a thing? We think back to Yaakov at the time when Yaakov was going to meet his brother Esav, and he was scared, he was terrified, and he says, right? He says, "Katonti mikol hachasidim." He says, I don't deserve this, and et cetera, et cetera. And here David says, I'm blameless. And it seems a little bit arrogant that the commentators question. And one of the things that the answers that's given is, it needs to be demonstrated and shown. Why did God choose David? Why did God choose David as the king of Israel? Why did he choose his descendants to remain the kings of Israel? Well, it's because of David's behavior. It's because of David's faithfulness and trust and complete 100% allegiance to God, as he expresses in this chapter. Vayashev, we're in verse 25. Adonai li kitzidki kivor yadi l'neged of God, right, gave back to me what I deserved. 26. Im chasid tit chasad, im gvar tamim tit tamam. When you're loyal, right, then you're loyal to people, and when you're blameless, then that's what gets to you, right? You get treated in that way. The one who is tam gets to be treated like a tam. The one who's a chassid gets treated like a chassid. All compliments. Im navar tit barar ve'im ikesh tit patal. With the pure, God acts purely, but however, with those who are ikesh, those who are perverse, those who don't listen, with them God acts in a tricky fashion. It is you who delivers the ani, the lowly, the poor, right? The haughty you bring down. So the poor, the weak, the humble God brings up, and the haughty, the arrogant God brings back down. You are the one who lights my lamp. Adonai Elohai yagia choshki. The Lord my God lights up my darkness. Ki v'cha arutz gedudu ve'Elohai adaleg shur. With you I can rush. With my God I can scale a wall, right? I can jump over barriers. I can scale over walls. We had an idea like this back in the book of Yeshaya. Kove Hashem yachlifu koach. Yeshaya said, I think in the 40th chapter, say those who trust in God, put their faith in God, yachlifu koach, their strength is extended. David would have said that before Yeshaya, but we read that verse before we read Tehillim. But Pasuk Lamed Aleph, verse 21, Ha'el tamim darko imrat Adonai tzrufa magenhu l'chol achosim bo. The way of God is perfect. The word of God is pure. He's a shield to all who seek refuge in him. In this verse, there's a transition. Up to this point, David was talking about himself, talking about what God has done for him, talking about how he deserved it. And now he talks more about, right, God. The way of God is perfect. Continue verse 32. Kimi Elohami baladi Adonai mitzur zulati Elohenu. Who is God except the Lord, right? There's only one God. Who is the rock but our God? Ha'el ha'ma'azreini chayil ve'yitain tamim darki. The God who protected me with might, who made my way straight, perfect, without any problems. Made my legs like a deer, right? I could run fast and let me stand firm on the heights. And this is all what God did. God trained my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. Vatiteli magei nishecha v'minchat sadeni va'an vatcha tarbeni. You gave me the shield of your protection. Your right hand has sustained me. Your care has made me great. Tarchib tzadi tachtai below ma'adu karsulai. You've led me go on a path freely. My feet have not slipped. And that word tarchiv, we talked about the word rachov. It's with the opposite of meitzar. Meitzar, when you're in a narrow place, when you're constricted, and rachov is wider. God has made me has allowed me to walk in a wide space. I haven't felt constricted. Erdof, word 38, pasuk lamed chet, oivai vasigei v'lo ashuv al chalotam. I pursued, overtook them. I didn't turn them back till I destroyed them. Below you flew tachat raglai. I struck them down and they could rise no more. They lay fallen at my feet. You gave me the strength for battle. You brought my adversaries, my enemies down before me. You made my enemies turn their back. Oref is the back of the neck. That's the idea of the egla arufa. The calf that Parshat Shofta, back in the book of Dvarim, that slave is called the Egla Arufa. You cut it from the back of its back of its neck. There's a character we haven't met her yet in our study, Orpah, the sister of Ruth the Moabite. She was her sister-in-law. She turns her back at Naomi and walks back. The last thing that Naomi sees is her oref, the back of her neck. Hence her name, Orpah. So God, you made my enemies turn tail before me. I saw the back of their necks. I wiped out my foes. They cried out, but there was none to deliver them. They cried out to God, but he did not answer them. Right? Too late. These are evil people. I ground them up as if they were dust. I stomped on them, flat as dirt on the streets. Tifal. Taidi, excuse me, Merevi, Am Tisimeni Larosh Goyim, Am Lo Yadati, Ya'avdun. You rescued me from the strife of people who set me at the head of nations, people I knew I had to serve. Lishema Ozen Yishamu Li, B'nei Neichar Yichachashuli. At the mere report, they became submissive. They became listening. They listened. The foreign powers cower before me, right? David, at this point, he's been saved from all his enemies. God has provided him, and now everybody's scared of him. We're in verse 46, Pasuk Memva, B'nei Nechar Yibolu, the Yachrigu mi Misgarotehem. Foreign peoples, they lose courage. They come trembling from their fortresses. Chai Adonai Varuch Tzuri, V'yarum Elohei Yish'i. The Lord lives. Blessed is my Lord as the rock. He is exalted by deliveries. He's strong. He's on the top. Ha'el hanatein nikamot li vayadber amim tachtai. The God who has vindicated me and made people below me, made people subject to me. So God is on the top. God, in a sense, pulled me up over my enemies. Mifalti me'oivai afmin kamai tiromimeni me'ish chamas hatzileni. God rescued me from my enemies, raised me clear of my adversaries, saved me from Ishei Hamas, from lawless men, from evil men. Al Kain, thus in verse 50, and therefore, Odcha b'goyim Adonai l'shimcha azam meira. Because of this, I sing your praises among the nations. And your name is a song in my mouth, in a sense. Your name is a song. Magdil Yeshuot Malko va'oseh chesed limshicho leDavid ulezaro ad olam. So God, right? He makes gadol. He makes great victories for his kings. He keeps faith with his anointed, with David, and with David's offsprings forever and ever. This is the way the chapter ends. You may be familiar with that verse, and we say it in Birkat HaMazon. There are two different versions of it. There's the Magdil version for the week and the Migdal version for Shabbat. And if you don't remember, which is okay, this chapter is basically the same exact chapter as the 22nd chapter of the book of Shmuel Bet, towards the end of David's life. We have basically the same words. There are a few changes there than what we have here. Most of the scholars believe that this is a later version, some of the changes. But here, this is again another chapter. Here we have less about sort of the evil. It's more about David's triumph, and that's why it's been given possibly this opening phrase that this was on the day when David was fully secure. He had defeated all of his enemies. It was already Shaul. He defeated everybody else, and thus he felt in a sense of pride to praise God and offer this lengthy song. And so with that, we'll conclude for today. And again, so we learn in memory of the Weissman's son, and you should remember him for many years, and as well as think about all of the Chayalim, all of the brave soldiers who gave up their lives in defending Medinat Yisrael, so right now it's already nighttime in Israel, so that the Jews in Israel and all over the world can continue to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut and the beauty of everything that the state of Israel has given to all of us.